Third Quarter Shutout podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joe, and I'm joined by Kyle.
Hello.
And Lockwood.
Hello.
And today, after weeks and weeks of kind of previewing draft talent, we've gone through kind of our top 50 picks. We've gone through kind of our sleepers. We're now looking at more predictive, but it's a what we would do draft. And today, the way that this is going to be structured is we're all going to take control of certain picks. So say, for example, I will have pick 1, Kyle will have pick 2, Joe will have pick 3. This way it also works out that we're all picking for the teams that we support as well. So it's kind of worked out perfectly. Like I said, this is going to be a what we would do draft. So we'll give you some insights as to kind of who we're thinking about, why we're picking these players, and we'll have a bit of back and forth. Say, for example, if I'm picking for the Jets at 7, Kyle and Joe can kind of jump in, give some suggestions, and try and convince me if they really want to. But like I said, this isn't predictive. We're just going to go with who we think fits the team best in a realistic fashion. And without further ado, I'll jump in first with the first overall pick. It's the Tennessee Titans. Now, earlier in the draft process, there was some contention. Who's it going to be? They said they wanted to draft generational talent. They wanted a blue chip prospect. It ain't happening. I mean, it depends on how high you are on him, but we're drafting Cam Ward, number 1 overall, to the Titans. It's a foregone conclusion at the minute. The odds are absolutely ridiculous. It's like minus 5,000 or something stupid. They're picking him. Does anyone have any issues or concerns with us picking Cam Ward at this position?
Not really. I mean,
no.
It's what we would do, but it's what we would do from pick 2 onwards, really.
It is, but also if I'm the Titans, you desperately need a quarterback as well.
Oh, for sure.
You can't continue with Will Levis. And look, Cam Ward is the number 1 QB prospect. There's no question about it. You've got an overall grade on him on PFF of 92.9 this year, so he's not a bad prospect. He's just not the generational QB prospect that you occasionally get in drafts. But he is the number 1 overall pick, and we'll move on to Kyle at pick number 2.
Yeah, I'm here with the Browns, and it feels it's one of 3. It's, do you take QB2? You look at the roster. Do you think, have we got enough where we're at, or do we need to go and get a rookie? Very good coaching setup there in Cleveland, or do we take one of the undeniable top 2 talents available? For me, I think there's a lot of places that they could improve on. If there was a better, more fleshed out top of the QB sort of class range this year, like last year, I'd definitely consider it. But for me, I'm going to have to go for the do-it-all-star himself, Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I don't have any complaints.
He's going to be primarily a receiver at Cleveland, I think. He's obviously said this week that he's not playing football if he can't play both. They're going to play him at both. They're going to put him at packages because they've got 2 decent cornerbacks, but that room can still be improved, especially kind of looking into the future as well. You pair him up with Jerry Jeudy at receiver. You then just need a quarterback in the future. But for now, you've got Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett.
I think Joe Flacco is probably a good bridge for them to have as well. I think he's got maybe 1 more year left in the tank. He wasn't great in Indianapolis last year, but he can bridge them over to get a decent QB next year.
Yeah, but that leaves us onto Joe with the number 3 overall pick.
Yeah, so obviously the Giants have flipped and flopped a lot in this draft. They could have gone QB, then they signed 2 QBs. So I don't think they're probably going to go in that direction at number 3. I mean, they quite easily could. Jameis Winston's not on a massive contract for the Giants, so he could be a cut candidate. It could be we signed him in case we didn't get Russ. We've got Russ, we've got a rookie, now cut Jameis, but I don't think they should. I don't think they will. I think for me, they're probably going to go for the best player left on the board. Number 2 consensus player in this draft as well, Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge rusher. I mean, Kevin Thibodeau hasn't been electric. He hasn't been amazing, and I think that's what they need, really.
Before you make that selection, can I just jump in quickly?
Yeah.
Would you all consider drafting an Armand Member
I wouldn't be against it.
to fill that right tackle position? Then you've got a very good offensive line, really. You're solid at both tackle positions. Your interior is not great, but it's okay. You know, he's arguably the best pure tackle in the draft. You've
Yep,
got a
I agree.
need at right tackle. Are you considering it at all?
I would consider it. I think the Giants are probably the start of the draft. I think the first two picks are a bit choked up at this point. I think everyone knows what's happening. I think you could persuade me with Membu, but I think for me it's Abdul Carter. I know you want him. I know you want him for the Pats.
It's not even
Number
that.
4.
The only reason I say that is because Thibodeau's only got better since
That's
he's
true.
got in the league. He's not the best. He's not kind of where you thought he would be when you drafted him. But when you've already got that kind of edge room in Burns and Thibodeau, to me at least, obviously he's the best player on the board there. But you could also pair Mason Graham there to fill out the interior D line with Sexy Dexy.
I think it's a lazy comparison, but everyone compares him to Micah Parsons, them both being Penn State edge rushers. I think he could play that stand-up outside linebacker, edge rusher, that kind of jack of all trades role. So
he can,
yeah,
and I know
I
you've made
think
up
that's
your
what.
mind. I'm just trying to offer some conversation.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I think for me it is Abdul Carter at 3. I'm sorry, Joe.
Just a case of best
That's
player available,
fine.
isn't it?
It is.
He's the best player
is.
available, and they'd be silly not to pick him. Which I'll now jump in at number 4. Does anyone want to trade up to number 4? No.
Not
sorry,
unless,
no.
What are we
not unless
thinking?
you can let me fleece you.
No, but can I make a suggestion here about a possible trade candidate? If they want the next best player in the draft
See, I
to
think
jump the Raiders,
I think the Raiders could.
is there a world where the Chicago Bears jump up to number 4, to take Ashton Genty, to jump the Raiders?
A running back at 4 would be obscene, but
I'm not being funny, mate. But he's
probably the best player available.
He's probably the 3rd best player in the draft.
Yeah.
See, you say probably. I feel like once you get those first 2 players out of the way, it then just becomes personal taste, what you need, what. There's all sorts of different things that you could do, what fits you. There's not a clear cut. He's a very talented player. I don't know if he's universally agreed as the 3rd best player.
In that case, then, what I'm going to do is you've kind of got to draft for need a little bit for the Pats because the best players are off the board. Now, this is a little bit different, and obviously everyone wants us to go left tackle. I'm going with someone who I've got in my top 6 prospects. We need a receiver. We need an X receiver. I'm going Ted McMillan. I think that he's got quite a bit of hate at the minute for some unknown reason because I think he's absolutely sensational. I'm drafting Ted at number 4 because it's a no-brainer to me.
The only reason he's got hate is because people don't look at him as a generational talent like the last couple sort of top receivers we've seen come through. He's still a top 10 pick in most years' draft classes.
Yeah. It's just last year, when you compare it to last year,
we were spoiled last year.
We were spoiled. So, yeah, that's my pick. Ted at number 4. Carl, you're on the clock with the Jags at number 5.
The Jags are one of those teams, they could do quite literally anything. There is no wrong pick for me here. It's just...
I think there is.
Well, I think quarterback would be a wrong pick.
Yeah.
You could talk me into any of the big names that are remaining. Do they want more on that offensive line? Could it be Campbell? Could it be Membu? Absolutely. Could they be looking at the defensive line, Mason Graham? Yes, that's very much in play as well. But I'm gonna look at this and go, they need to address the defense. I'm thinking cornerback for the Jags here. Now it's
Hair?
which cornerback do you have? For me, I'm going to go the guy that I have as my cornerback 1, the Texas guy, Jahdae Barron. I think it's potentially a little early for some, but for me, I truly do see him as a top 10 pick. He's cornerback 1, maybe 2 if you want to include Travis Hunter and his sort of positional versatility.
Yeah.
But I think that they can do a lot worse than Barron here at 5.
They absolutely can. You played him on the outside if you're the Jags then, because you've just paid Jordan Lewis.
I think, as we discussed in the other episode, he can play anywhere. You've got 5 defensive back positions. He's one of those, you find a place for him, and he instantly makes you a better team just wherever he's at, whether it's safety, nickel, corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think outside is probably where he's going to get most looked at first.
Yeah, I respect that.
I would say as well they do have a need at safety. There is an
They
argument
do have
to
a
say
need
he
at
would go down
safety.
and play safety.
I'll be honest, if it was me, for the Jags at 5, I would be considering a Tyler Warren.
Yes, yeah, they've just got rid of. Yeah,
but again, is 5 a little bit too rich for?
I wasn't not
a fairly
considering
stacked.
It, but yeah, as you're about to say, it's a stacked class. Like you can get a good tight
You've got
end
starters up until round
2 or 3,
end of round 3.
I think.
Yeah,
you're not going to get a starting cornerback in round 3 this year, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So that's fine. Joe, you're up. The Raiders are on the clock.
And I think if I'm the Las Vegas Raiders here, I'm absolutely rubbing my hands because they've had some of the best players in this draft fall to them without having to do anything. They could beef up their defensive line and just have one of the best defensive lines in football and take Mason Graham. They could take a tackle, beef up their offensive line, and give Gino the protection he didn't have in Seattle. Make sure he definitely doesn't get touched next season. But I just can't look past the backfield and running back position. I think if Ashton Genty's there, I think Pete Carroll's absolutely sprinting in that pick. Just the way Ashton Genty plays, for me, he's just a Pete Carroll running back. And yeah,
I agree with you.
I think he's the best player available at that pick. So I think the Raiders are in a good position where they could. I mean, there is a case to say that they need defensive back as well. That they have very little in the way of DBs, but I think they're in a prime position at the start of the second to chase the DBs that fall out the first round. So I don't think they need to push the issue after Will Johnson at 6.
Yeah, I mean it's fair enough. He's definitely on the cards for them. I think the Raiders could get a couple of calls at this point just because of some of the picks coming up. I think the Raiders could possibly get a call about someone wanting to come up for Genty, but it just makes a ton of sense for him.
Yeah, I think they're sprinting it in.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with anything you've said. I'm not going to say it's a home run pick, but it's a pretty good pick. They're not going to be having any doubts about what they're doing if they're taking Genty here at 6.
No, run the damn ball.
Run the damn ball. And speaking of running the ball, to do that, you need an offensive line, and a damn good one at that. Now, my immediate thought for the Jets at number 7, with me now on the clock, immediately my head goes to Membu. With Morgan Moses leaving the Jets and going to the Pats, they've got an empty spot at right tackle, essentially. They got, Chukwuma Owokafor, I think is how you say his name. They desperately need a right tackle as well, and I think if you're kind of committed to Fields, you're probably going to want to look at it. Or do you want to try and get Fields a weapon? Essentially here is I'm debating between Membu and I'm also eyeing up Tyler Warren.
Are you not looking at the guy sat top of most people's draft boards then?
Yeah, the pretty dismal pass rush that the Jets had last year.
I think the Jets could use interior D-line help. And I think the only reason
they could.
They're not getting Mason Graham talked about them more is because he's gone by 7 more times than not.
He is, but I think I think I'm still leaning towards Membu, you know.
I think Membu is
And
the
I get
obvious choice. You know,
the Mason Graham.
for
I get
everything
the
you've
Mason
said
Graham.
about right tackle, Membu is the obvious and arguably correct choice here. But I think interior D line is a position of need, and Mason Graham is a good player as well that most people wouldn't have available at 7. So I think it's definitely something that if if it happens in real life like this, the Jets need to stop and go, right, well, we need to have a proper think about this. They definitely need to weigh up their options.
They do. They 100% do. But ultimately, I think you need to, you know, they apparently believe in Justin Fields, right? And if I was them, I would too, because I like Justin Fields.
There are worse QBs going to start this year than Justin Fields.
Absolutely. And I think if you believe in him, you want that protection, especially from the tackle spot. You've got a good left tackle. You now need the right tackle. For me, I completely understand that interior defensive line is a need. I'm going Membu. I've kind of made up my decision there. Obviously, Mason Graham is falling here, which, to be fair, could happen on draft day. He's not a consensus to the Jags at 5, like everyone kind of predicts, because he does have downsides as well. Everyone at this point does have downsides. This is a draft of players that can start. It's not a blue chip draft where you've got the top 15 picks are all going to be incredible players. I'm going Membu, which now leads us on to your Carolina Panthers at number 8.
It does.
You can stop rubbing your hands.
So, if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at our positions of need. 3 biggest positions of need. Edge, everybody knows about it. We need a second safety. Got Trevor Moehrig in free agency, but we need a second guy really. And then wide receiver. For me, there's only one wide receiver that we should be considering at 8, and he's already gone at 4. So that's offense off the board. We're now looking at edge or safety. 8 is rich for safety. Most people would sort of say you don't positional value, you don't do it. But because of the edges that we signed, we got Pat Jones in free agency. I think the strength of this edge class lends itself well to being able to find a day 2 starter if you need one. I trust
even late in round 2.
Yeah. We've talked about potentially trading back. We've talked about shaking all sorts. So, I will put it out there. Has anybody got anything that they'd like to trade up for? Bearing in mind
Let's have a look.
Who's picking next and what they're being rumoured to pick. Obviously, we don't know what Lockwood's going to do, but there's a lot of QB whisperings at 9 to the Saints. Is there a team that might move up, perhaps? Is there a team
this is what I'm thinking, and it's probably...
Is there a team that sees Mason Graham sliding and think, let's go make a move for him?
That's what I'm looking at right now, and there is a team that I'm looking at that I think, even, if you really want to, the best offensive lineman in the draft is still on the board. Will Campbell's still on the board. Now, he's got those concerns, but does Seattle see those concerns and go, we can move him inside, we need inside help? Obviously, I'm not looking at the charts or anything like that. Kyle, what are you wanting to kind of realistically move back from spot 8?
Well, the Panthers' next pick is pick 57. It's a late second round pick. I think we'd want not necessarily an early second, because I think if we're getting an early second, a team's going to have to make a huge jump. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with us moving back sort of 15 picks in the first round. However, I think if a team could give us a third round pick that we could then package with 57 and move that up into the earlier second ourselves later on, that is something I could be persuaded by.
Well, I'll be honest. What do the Seahawks have in pick in round 3?
They have 2 thirds, don't they?
They have 2 seconds.
Day 2 galore.
They got a third from the Geno pick as well.
The Seahawks have 50, 52, 82, and 92. They've got 4 day 2 picks.
How about Seahawks trading up to number 8, so you move back to pick 18, and you get a third this year? I'm assuming you want him more than that.
Yeah, 10 spots is a lot. I'd probably want 2 of their day 2 picks. I'd settle.
Okay.
I'd settle for 82 and 92, really. So 18.
Yeah, let's do that.
82, 90.
Let's do that.
Whose team
Pair of
is?
thirds.
Whose team is the Seahawks?
Pair of thirds. Mine.
You happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
I'm
Let's
happy
do
with
it
that. Cool.
because to me, the Seahawks desperately need that interior offensive lineman. They could do with help at center as well. I think you're picking Will Campbell. If you're picking him in this spot, you're probably thinking, I'm moving him straight to guard. You're probably doing a Peter Skoronsky on him.
Well, I think they've got
It's
that
a
many
bit of a-
leads. They can just play him wherever, and it'll probably work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are we shaking hands on that deal?
There you go. That's my left hand.
Hand
The
is
right hand's on
shaken.
the button. There you
Seahawks
go.
are on the clock at pick 8, and they are sprinting in that card to get the best offensive lineman in this draft. Who cares if he has short arms? It's Will Campbell at number 8.
There we go.
The Saints are on the clock now, Mr. John
Yeah.
Rockwood.
I think Mason Graham again being there, it does make it slightly more interesting.
I think you're silly if you do not pick him right now, by the way.
I say I probably would pick him in that position, but I do have my pick before we start this process. And obviously, I've been thinking about this all day. This is my big pick. It's obviously my team. I love Tyler Warren at this position. I know we just played Juwan Johnson, but a 2 tight end set of Juwan Johnson and Tyler Warren all season is definitely something that could get me interested, especially seeing as though Tyler Warren can move out and play that slot role. You know, he could become that 3rd, 4th wide receiver for us. I do really like it at that position, but yeah,
I mean, you could
It's
put
between
Taysom
Tyler
Hill
Warren and
out
Mason
as the
Graham.
3rd tight end, and it'd still be a passing heavy set.
yeah, I'll say Taysom Hill's injury as well this season. We don't know what's going to be going on with his ACL. Obviously, he's 36, 37 at this point. He's getting on. We probably do need to think about replacing him. And
I know what I'm doing if I'm the Saints. I'm picking
I know.
BPA.
I know. BPA would dictate that we go for Mason Graham, and I'd be inclined to agree. I think we can't. I think this is the floor for Mason Graham. I think we need defensive line help. In fact, we need help everywhere. I think we could pick a player in this draft, and it'd make us better. So I think for me, I think it's Mason Graham. But if it
Good
wasn't
choice.
if it wasn't this situation, I'd be going Tyler Warren, and I'd be sprinting the Tyler Warren pick in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I'm on the clock again. Chicago Bears, they've got needs. You know, it's a bit early. Am I considering Amarian Hampton? I am considering Amarian Hampton.
You
I
absolutely
think
have to, really.
he's very, very good. I'm not going to pick him, though. I'm going to look towards the defensive side of the ball. My main guy that I would probably be targeting, Mason Graham, at pick 9, is now gone. I'm now considering 2 people. I'm considering Mike Green, edge from Marshall. And it's a little bit... Part of me just wants to say Donovan Azaraku because I love him so much if you listen to one of the previous episodes. But I think Mike Green's fallen to you. I think he's a very good player. I think obviously there are a couple of concerns there in terms of character, but we're ignoring that. I'm looking at the player. He's the 2nd best edge rusher in the class for me, without a doubt. They needed an edge rusher last year. They went full on offense. It's time to blow the ball out the park with defense. We're going Mike Green at pick 10.
I do want to butt in quickly before.
Yeah.
Remember who the defensive coordinator is there, and it being my favourite person in the world. He's got a type when it comes to a defensive end.
I don't care. It's what I would do.
It is what you would do. It is what you would do, but
I also don't know.
I completely agree.
If he's got enough respect in the Bears office yet. Yeah, back at the Saints, everyone trusted him and did what he said. I don't know whether.
that's how well that went.
Exactly.
I'm looking at Ben Johnson.
I agree with you
back
here,
there,
Joe.
100%.
Mike Green's a fantastic pick.
He is the best. He's the best edge. But yeah, that would be my interjection there. He's probably the best edge available.
Right.
49ers, you are now up.
49ers, and we're now not up. It's Will Johnson.
Yep.
Cool.
You're sprinting in the pick.
The Cowboys,
Yeah,
next
fair
pick,
enough.
who's up?
Oh,
No, so you picking Will Johnson. I just want to say, I agree with it. I think there's a possibility that they look towards the trenches a little bit more,
Oh, I think
especially on the
I think if
offense.
there's not a top cornerback there at 11, it's definitely a lineman
Yeah.
either side. But I think particularly the way that defense is going to work next year, Will Johnson is just such a good fit.
He is. Joe,
yeah.
Dallas, you're up.
Yeah. And Dallas
Pick an unknown offensive lineman.
who can we get way down the board?
Ozzy Trapeo.
Yes, a third round grade. But for me, it's
For
a weird, it's a weird spot for the Dallas Cowboys because obviously they need wide receiver help, but there isn't really a wide receiver that is a true X. You know, if you look at what CeeDee Lamb is, he's probably not the true X receiver. They need a big body wide receiver, and that isn't that there with Tech going. So they could go Luther Burden. I think that's on the board. Tyler Warren potentially could go, but they say that they've got a decent tight end in Dallas as well. Offensive line is in play potentially. You know,
It's definitely in play.
There's a few offensive linemen. You know, Kelvin Banks, Gray Zabel.
I know who I'm picking if I'm Dallas.
I'm all ears. Who are you thinking?
I'm picking Jahad Campbell.
That is also a good pick.
Kyle, you don't agree?
I don't disagree. 12 is rich for a linebacker.
It is, but I think he's that good.
I don't dislike the player. He looks like a great prospect. But if there is one position that just doesn't, like the draft picks don't work out on, it's linebacker. You've better luck taking a safety or a center in round 1.
I will agree with you there.
Yeah.
However,
if this was
he
pick
also
20,
had 112 snaps on the defensive line this year.
I also think, you know, exactly what I said for Tyler Warren reigns true here, that, you know, he could play that big body wide receiver. He could play in that role. He doesn't have to play in line the entire time. You know, I'm doing it. I'm going to go Tyler Warren, the Cowboys.
Ooh.
It's not consensus, but I think
it's not consensus. It's a good pick, but it's
a big pass catching option for him.
It is indeed. And now I am up with the Miami Dolphins. Do I ruin my rival? No, I don't, because we want to see them succeed in this draft. There's a couple of options here. You're probably looking at either interior D-line or offensive line. I think those are the two.
Lineman. I couldn't tell you which one, but this is an interior lineman.
I know who I'm going for, and it's not something the Dolphins will do. It's not something they ever really do, and I don't think they would do at this spot either, purely because, like a lot of the tackles in this draft, he has had some conversations about can he play tackle. I think this guy, out of the ones that have had those conversations, is the most likely to play tackle. If he doesn't work out at tackle, you can bump him inside. And he's dropped down the board a little bit, but for the guy who was the best tackle in college football this past season, I'm picking Kelvin Banks Jr. for them. I know you drafted a tackle last year, but to me, you need to protect Tua, man. He's dying out there. You need to protect Tua. I'm picking Kelvin Banks Jr. He can start straight away.
It's the same breakdown as we had with Will Campbell for the Seahawks, isn't it? He's an improvement.
Yeah.
They need it. He'll fit in somewhere.
He's an improvement anywhere on that line.
Yeah.
They've just lost the best tackle to retirement.
If anything, this is the thing. You don't play him at centre. It's the only position that you don't really want to play Kelvin Banks, but you could play him at guard 100%. You can move him over to right tackle if you wanted. He's going to play left tackle for them in this scenario. Indy, you're up on the clock and pick 14.
I feel like much like my last pick with the 49ers, this is also a relatively obvious pick. I know it's what we would do, but there's a reason that certain names are going to certain teams over and over again. I think with Tyler Warren off, it's now, right, cool, you take the other tight end left. There is such a huge position of need there at Indy. You know, they're here picking at 14. They said it was a bad year last year, and yes, there's a lot of like concerns, but they had a bad year and they still ended up with a 14th overall pick. The Patriots had a bad year and ended up with a 4th overall pick.
Whoa!
It's the first
Oh, sorry.
thing I
The
can think
Panthers
of.
apparently
The
had a
hat was in my
good year and
face.
ended up with the number 8.
No need. We know how bad
Oh,
we are.
yeah, exactly.
We're all bad. We're all
Yeah.
bad here.
So you go in Loveland.
It's Colson Loveland, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You can play him anywhere at a receiver position. You can play him on the line. You can play him in the slot. He's going to be that middle kind of field target. Whoever is throwing the ball, whether it's Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, he's going to catch the ball for you. It's Loveland.
I mean, if they're
so
lucky,
Joe,
they'll find a way to make Loveland the QB as well.
they're X-Men. Tyler Warren did it. Falcons, pick 15.
Yeah.
You cannot ruin them. I know you don't like them.
Well, if you're not ruining the Dolphins, then I'm not going to ruin the Falcons. I'm
Please
going to play
ruin
the
the
game how it should be.
Falcons.
And they should do what everyone was screaming for them to do last year. I know they took Michael Penix, and that seems to have worked out for them. But for me, they need edge rush help. They really need edge rush help badly. I mean, they could go Jihad Campbell here. I think, you getting a linebacker on board who also has that ability to play on the edge and be a pass rusher. I think I'm talking myself into it. I think that could be the play.
I think if you're looking for an off-the-ball linebacker that doubles as a pass rusher, there's someone on the board there that is probably going to be a top 10 pick on draft day.
That is also true. He's around there somewhere. Let me find him where he is on my board.
I would have to agree with the Smith variant of Joe here.
I say, Jalen Walker or Jihad Campbell is one of the two.
He's got more pure pass rush.
I think.
If you ask
Matthew Judon did not work out. Matthew Judon has not worked out.
No,
the Patriots have fleeced the Falcons in that trade. I remember being upset when we traded him for a 3rd-round pick. Oh my God. It's the only good thing Elliot Wolf has done other than draft Drake May.
If you ask me, I think both Campbell and Walker end up in the NFC South. But yeah, I probably agree.
We'll
I think Jalen Walker is probably the pick here. I think the Falcons take him.
Right.
That's
it is me
the
up.
Cardinals.
The Cardinals are an interesting one. Again, team with a lot of needs, especially on both lines. But they need secondary help as well. But I'm not necessarily picking a safety at this position, and I don't know if I'm reaching on a cornerback at pick 16. Because I think if I'm taking a cornerback, I'm reaching here. Especially with injury concerns. If injuries were out the window, I'm not, and I know where I'm kind of taking the card. I'm taking a defensive lineman here. And I'm taking the guy that I prefer on the defensive line. As an interior guy, I'm taking Walter Nolan at pick 16.
That's a good pick.
They need that. I know that they've got a couple of kind of 3-4 defensive end guys that they brought in last year. They've got a couple of guys that you can play off the edge. They've got Josh Sweat now, so edge isn't kind of the main need of concern that I'm going for. I think you pair Walter Nolan in that interior of that defense, and I think he's just going to kind of cause a little bit of chaos. I have him as my defensive lineman number 2. Yeah, it's Walter Nolan for me there.
I like it. I mean, yes, they've signed a couple guys in free agency. I still think they could throw a dart at any player who plays in the box, and they're going to improve their defense.
Yeah, I agree. Carl,
right.
You're up with the Bengals. You're picking offense.
I've now got a back-to-back pick here. I've got the Bengals.
You do.
And before we get back to the previously promised picks, so I think the Bengals. It's the same thing as every year. Is do they need to improve that offensive line? Probably. Are they going to? Probably not. They'll find a way to draft another receiver, not pay him and overpay him. It's just the Bengals cycle at this point.
Can I interest you in Matthew Golden?
Probably. You probably can. No, I think it's going to be a lineman. It's either going to be interior on the offensive or edge player on the defensive. For me, I think based on the strength and the weakness of those two groups in this class, you're looking to address the interior of the offensive line now, and then you can get an edge player with your next couple
Defensive
picks.
line.
Yeah. I'm going to take the guy I think most people would agree at this point, based on who's left, is the best interior offensive lineman. Could play at tackle if you needed, but it's going to be the North Dakota State player, Gray Zabel.
Yes.
I love Gray Zabel. I was hoping that you would
100%.
pick him.
He's a very likable player.
Kyle, you're up again with the Panthers.
Oh, would you look at that? Right. I'm going to make the pick that I was about to make it 8 until I got offered a bunch from the Seahawks. As I said, I'm going to take edge later on in this version. Again, I still don't think I'm going to take a receiver yet. I want to see if we can make Xavier Legette work out. Jalen Coker was hugely impressive as an undrafted free agent rookie. Adam Thielen appears to be the ageless wonder. He keeps going. So for me, the other position of need is safety. And I feel a lot better about taking a safety at 18 than I do at 8. But I like Nick Emanwari enough anyway that I would have done it. So he's going to be my pick. He's going to stay in the Carolinas. He's going to join the growing bunch of South Carolina Gamecocks on the Panthers. And I'm going to be quite happy with that. Between him and Moerig, I've got 2 aggressive run-stuffing safeties that I think are going to fly around and wreak havoc in the NFC South.
I'll say I agree with the pick, but I respect your decision.
I think edge is what I'd have gone for. I don't know about you, Joe.
Yes, I 100% would have done. If I'm going safety at this point, I'm going Malachi Starks.
Yeah, he's fallen a long way.
I think Emanwari's good. I just think he is an athlete. I think Malachi Starks is the better player. But alas, you have gone for Nick Emanwari.
We move on.
Move on. Joe, you're up at pick 19 with not the pick that you thought you were having, but it's an obvious one.
Yes, I'm taking your pick, and I alluded to it earlier. I think there's no two ways about this. It's Jahad Campbell. I think if he drops this far, the Bucs are, they're not thinking twice about it. I think it could be the shortest clock of the night. I think Jahad Campbell is just the pick here. I don't know if there's going to be any other concerns from you guys.
No.
I 100% agree with you. So I am up with the Broncos. It's Amari and Hampton.
Ooh.
It's Amari and Hampton. They've got a couple of running backs.
I mean, up until 2 minutes ago, it was going to be me with the Broncos, and it would have been the same pick.
Yeah, he's by far the second best running back in this class. He's probably going to go in round 1. I know who I'm picking.
I've got no complaints.
For all the reasons you said, fantastic running back, team fits a need, really, really helps improve an already improving team. And that now leaves me with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, everyone at this point, they go, oh, well, it's, is it a quarterback? Is it not? And they'll go, oh, let's just assume they've signed Aaron Rodgers. At this point, we are 8 days away from the draft, and they've still not signed Aaron Rodgers. It's going to get to a point that you can't just go, oh, we'll assume they will, or they're going to sign it, it'll be fine. They haven't. I think we have to start looking at the fact that this pick at 21 is going to be a quarterback, whether the Steelers want it to be or not. Now, anyone who follows us on Instagram will see my quarterback rankings came out today. They're on there, and my pick that it's going to be is not the expected number 2 quarterback off the board. It's going to be the Ole Miss quarterback, Jackson Dart. Now, I know
we all like him.
We do.
We all like him. Joe made a good point that kind of before this, you've got kind of 2 receivers that are kind of deep threats. He's got experience in that Ole Miss offense, throw into guys that can just go vertical. He's more athletic than Shedeur, with a good offensive line, which the Steelers have.
He's a quarterback who's going to take a risk, and if you've got a quarterback who's going to take a risk, you need a defense. if you don't know anything about football, you know the Pittsburgh Steelers have a defense. They've had a defense for about 40 years straight.
For now, at least. TJ Watt is maybe on the move somewhere.
On a new deal.
That kind of looks towards. Sure, you're on the clock with the Chargers.
Yeah, I think seeing the two tight ends go, especially the Michigan Carson Loveland go, I think Harbaugh's punching holes in walls at that point, seeing Carson Loveland go off the board. I think, though, speaking of Michigan players, I think he could quite easily go and turn around and draft Kenneth Grant right here. Beef up his D line, and just bring a Michigan alum in with him.
Yep.
I think that's the pick. Yeah, I do. I think that's the pick.
Good
100%.
choice.
Yeah,
it's a feel-good pick.
100%.
Right, I've got the cursed pick. The Packers are on the clock.
No one wants.
I've somehow managed to get myself into this because we did bad maths. Besides the point that we can't do maths, we can draft football players. And just like the Green Bay Packers can do it, we can draft wide receivers. Now the question is, which wide receiver do I want? Because, listen, the three kind of best receivers that are on my kind of board right now aren't necessarily the guys that I'm thinking about. I'm going to throw a curveball. And he is in my top 5 wide receivers. I'm going Jaden Higgins from Iowa State.
Wow. In the first?
In the first. I've got him as an early day 2 guy. Ultimately, listen, the problem with the Packers receivers is they all know how to run slants and middle routes, but they kind of drafted Christian Watson thinking he'd be a bit of a deep threat because of his speed. He's not. I think Emeka Ibuka can play other places than the slot, but I think his position's probably going to be in the slot, and he's very similar to what you've got. I think Luther Burden, he's a slot receiver. He's not necessarily a short route slot receiver, but he's a slot receiver. Matthew Golden, again, is kind of a similar archetype to the kind of guys that Green Bay already have. I'm mixing it up. I'm going for kind of that X receiver. Why not? I like him.
I don't disagree with the reasoning. The logic is sound. As we discussed on the offensive episode a few weeks back, I disagree with the specific player. Yeah,
I know who you want, but listen, I think teams are higher on Jaden Higgins.
A Packers fan who is currently on his way to come and beat you up right now.
I do not care. But Kyle, you're on the board with the Minnesota Vikings.
I would very much like to not be on the board.
Yes, I have a trade for you. I don't know whose pick it would be.
I think there is a team that could trade up considering who's on the board.
Obviously, I've said that Dart was my QB2 over Sanders, but there is still now a QB there. We are approaching round 2. Is there a few QB needy teams, specifically the Giants and the Browns, who could be aggressive to go and fix that, get themselves up there and get themselves another quarterback?
Get a fifth-year option.
I think it's the Browns more than the Giants.
I think you could do 67 and a third next year and ask for like a fourth next year back, maybe.
I think that's a smart move.
Does that sparkle and please with you guys?
I'm fairly happy with that. I think it's something that the Browns could do, even if throughout when the year started, it was 100%. Shadur's not going to Cleveland. Dion won't let him. He's going to Cleveland, boys. Yeah,
they
I'm
look
happy with that.
after QB prospects in Cleveland. It's fine.
Cool.
They do indeed, which means
sorry,
Kyle.
Vikings fans,
your we will just say,
we'll give them an
for the sake of this,
at the end.
We'll give them an imaginary pick at the end. Kyle, you're sticking with this pick. Obviously, we will kind of have a look whose pick it would be in a second. Are you taking Shadur Sanders?
Yes.
There we are. Perfect. Which means, Joe, you're on the board with the Texans.
And again, I'm going to get very boring. I think there's only one way this pick goes, especially considering now their off-season's gone. And they're going offensive tackle. it's just a matter of which offensive tackle they're going to go for at this point. Do they want to go for Josh Simmons, who probably is the best offensive tackle left, but would they be comfortable with the medicals? Is he
I
going to
mean,
be back fit?
it's what the Texans need, isn't it? Another offensive player
It
with knee
is.
issues.
Exactly. So there is Josh Conley sat there staring them down. So
All I would say is, and I know it's what we would do, don't be shocked if they draft a wide receiver on draft night.
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. But I think their entire offseason has been geared towards we're rebuilding this offensive line because our offensive line almost killed CJ Stroud last season. I like Josh Simmons. I really, really like Josh Simmons. But I think Josh Conley goes here just because Josh Conley's. I think it's a risk.
I have him quite high, and I think he's a very good player. So, Joe, what are you looking in?
I think I'm locking in Connolly. I think they need a tackle. I think
I think that's fair enough. Which means I am up with another pick that I didn't want at this point. There's a couple of routes I could look to go down here. I'm thinking corner. I'm thinking tackle. I am possibly thinking receiver with them trading away Cooper Kupp. The question is, do I want to bite the bullet on a player that I think is going to be really good? Or do I go for a more of a Sean McVay pick?
Are you Sean
difficult
McVay?
One. I am not Sean McVay.
What would you do,
don't
Joe?
Do the Sean McVay pick. Do what you would do.
I would go Luther Burden III.
Ooh.
Okay.
I like it.
You've got rid of Cooper Kupp. You're bringing in a slot receiver with his after the ball ability is just. Do you not think he's a slot receiver?
I don't think he's an X, but no, I wouldn't describe him as a slot. He can play in the slot for sure, but I'd describe him as like the other bound, like a Z type, like a Z receiver, if you will, can play opposite an X.
Well, even if that's the case, then you play him at Z.
Become Puka's Robin.
Puka's talking about retirement, so
there you go.
Let's draft for when he retires. Yeah, I'm going Luther Burden III. Part of me wanted to possibly consider like a Malachi Starks, maybe even interior kind of moving him about a little bit, but we'll go with the pick that I quite like there, Luther Burden as a pass catcher for Matthew Stafford. How are you up with the Ravens?
I am. I'm going to tell you right now, the position I'm going to take is I'm going to take an edge player. One, I think they could use some improvement in that edge room.
Yep.
Two, as a collective, we've not taken an edge player since pick 10 with the Bears, and I feel like that's quite unlikely to happen. So I'm going to end the weird slide that we've got going on, because there's a few players here who are getting top 10, top 10 sort of speculation, and we're approaching the end of the first and they're still sat there. Now, this is purely what we would do, not necessarily the best team fit. I'm not a Ravens fan. I don't know their dynamics in their ins and outs. So I'm just going to take the player that I like the best at this point. It's the Boston College edge defender, Donovan Ezeraku.
Let's go, baby. Boston College. He's a good player.
He is.
He's a good player.
He is.
I think he fits that system fairly well. I know I'm not familiar with it like you said, but you saw Kyle Van Noy be quite productive, and I don't think they're exactly the same player, but I can see Donovan Ezeraku being very productive in that defense there. So it's a good pick.
Yeah, there are one or two concerns about his size, but what he has in size concerns, he doesn't have in production concerns. He's one of the more productive edge players in this group this year.
I agree. Which means, Joe, you're up with the Lions at pick 28.
And you want to talk about stopping the slide of the edge rushers. I think this, again, another edge rush is coming off here. It's just who wants to play Dan Campbell ball and who doesn't. I think for me, it's between two. I think it's between Michael and Shamar Stewart. I think they could do with a big body on the other side to Aiden Hutchinson. It's just who Dan Campbell's going to prefer. I'm leaning towards Michael.
I disagree with you. I'm going to have to say, but I don't hate it, but I disagree with you.
Who are you thinking? Who are you thinking here?
Well, listen, I think ultimately, if it's me and I want a pass rusher, the two that are kind of left for me that I'm really looking at, I'm looking at Shamar Stewart. And I'm looking at James Pierce Jr.
Yeah, James Pierce Jr. I'll say it's a weird edge class. It's stacked, but they could go all over the place. I think you are drafting for projection. I think Michael is someone that will take development. And I think playing across from Aiden Hutchinson probably takes a lot of the pressure off of him. You know, if he went somewhere like the Saints or the Bears, who were like they're desperate for an edge, I think there's a lot more pressure on him. I think if he goes to somewhere like the Lions, potentially even a pick a bit later on in the first round towards the end, I think there's less pressure on him there.
Let's make the pick then.
Yeah, I'm going Michael Williams.
I hate it.
I don't know when James Pierce is going to get picked, but I have him as my edge 3 and the 9th overall player in this class, and there's 4 picks left.
When's he going to get picked? When's he going to get picked?
You have a pick left, Kyle.
Washington.
This is
got a couple of needs. Outperformed last year.
I mean, you say outperformed. I think you're just sad that their rookie QB did better than your rookie QB.
Nobody does love that rookie QB.
But they did have a better team overall as well. To be fair, they had a number 1 wide receiver. They had a better offensive line. They had a better defense.
They did. How are you going to improve it then?
I'm going to improve it by picking Savon Ravel. I think this way you can have 2 outside corners and you can move Sarah Still inside. I clicked the pick button. It's Ravel.
Ah, he's locked in.
Savon.
Right.
He's locked in.
And it's now
He's a commander.
Me with the Bills. Right. I don't know what to do with the Bills. I will take any and all suggestions.
I do know what I'd do with the Bills personally. I think you've got a couple of options. I think they desperately need defensive help. It's a defensive pick. I think
100%.
we could all agree on that.
Yeah,
I think ultimately
it's a defensive
to
pick
me,
unless one of the bigger name receivers falls this far.
to me at least, I think I'll give you my 3 choices that I would possibly look at. Malachi Starks, purely because, listen, I know they've got some safeties there, but I think he's an improvement immediately.
BPA.
But I don't necessarily think he's the sexy pick there. And then it's, to me, the next one is Trey Amos.
I don't know. I agree with a fit. I don't know if I can justify using the 30th overall pick on him.
Which I understand because some people aren't as high on him as I am.
I am tempted.
My next one is Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, I get that. I am almost tempted just to do sort of defensive BPA in a way, if you will. My defensive tackle 2 is still on the board. They could use help there. I don't think there's a position on the defense that they would turn down an improvement at.
Yep.
I think I might just go for Derek Harmon out of Oregon and be happy with it.
He's someone that is definitely he's slipped for me a little bit.
Yes.
I would have considered him a little bit further back, especially if the Vikings had have sticked and picked.
Yes.
But I think it's a good landing spot for him. It beefs up that interior.
It's probably between Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, and Derek Harmon for me at this point. I'm going to go for the defensive tackle, just because I think, as I've said it multiple times, I think the drop-off after Harmon is a bit bigger than the drop-off after Stewart and Pierce is.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Which brings us to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I would like to make a trade.
Okay.
The New England Patriots would like to trade with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, what are we offering?
I'm offering my 2nd round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm offering 3rd round pick next year.
So 38 and a third for 31.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because I think my guy could fall that far. It depends who the Patriots are coming up to draft.
It doesn't matter who your guy is because you're not actually picking him at that point. Well, you can do for the Chiefs fans. There's one of them that is.
I think you
I think
probably have to add a little more sort of day 3 action in on that just to sweeten it. But you're on sort of
Okay,
solid ground.
I'll give you a second. I'll give you a second and a fifth this year,
Yeah.
and a third next year.
I would make that trade. I would make that trade. I think if
Probably
I wasn't
overpaying a little bit, but
if
I
I
need
wasn't
to
going to
for
make
what I'm
that
about to do.
trade,
You're
if I wasn't going to make
overpaying.
that trade, it was going to be Josh Simmons.
Yep. Well, are you shaking hands on that?
because I know exactly who you're coming up to draft.
Yep. Are you shaking hands on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
the
I'm
New England
taking it.
Patriots
I'm
are
taking it.
drafting Josh Simmons.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think I would draft him there, but I think the value I was getting for that trade, I would take.
Listen, I think for the Patriots, left tackle is a massive area of concern. Obviously, you've got concerns about Simmons' knee, but ultimately, if you're drafting for need and best player, even if Simmons has to sit a few games, isn't starting straight away, you need to rehab him a little bit. He's one of the best tackles in the draft. You need that. I don't necessarily think you're getting that in round 2, round 3. There you go.
No, I agree.
Which means I am now on the clock again.
And does Howie do it again?
Well, I don't know if
Does
there's any-
Howie do it again? I don't think he does, you know. I don't think he does.
We're not having him fall out the first round, are we?
I think it's a very real possibility. I think
it's
there's
a real
more
possibility
chance
as well.
he does than he doesn't. The
Fair.
positional value on safeties just it isn't there, despite the fact that so many good defenses are built around a safety. They just don't get drafted in the first round. It's like centers. You cannot have a functional offense without a good center, and yet for some reason there's no first round value on them.
Yeah, 100%. For this pick, you're picking one of 2 defensive players that left in the offseason. You're trying to replace them. The slide stops here. The Philadelphia Eagles at pick 32 to end our first round, what we would do mock draft. It's James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. They're replacing Josh Sweat. They've got interior guys. I would argue they need more help on the edge. I know that they drafted a couple of people last year, but James Pierce Jr., in terms of pure pass rush, in terms of that pure speed, edge 3, edge 2, it's debatable, but in terms of the pure pass rush, I'm not necessarily paying attention to the run stopping. I'm picking him. In that division, you've got some good quarterbacks now. You know, you've got some really good quarterbacks. I think there's still good edge defenders on there. You've got Scouton on there. You've got Stewart on there. You've still got some really good players on there. You've got Abuka left. You've got Golden left. You know, we've not gone heavy on the receivers, but it's James Pierce Jr. They need another edge rusher now that they've lost some of their pass rush. That's the draft.
It is. It's a good pick.
Do we agree with that? Do we agree with pick 32, by the way? Can I just ask?
I think if he's there,
so.
absolutely. As you said, for me, he's edge player 3. You know, it's Carter, it's Green, then it's Pierce.
Yep.
For me, anyway.
Right.
Are we gonna?
Shall we?
Off the top of our
recap?
heads,
I've got it in front of me.
The Vikings, somebody.
Oh yeah, Vikings and the Chiefs. We need to give.
Yeah. I've already.
Kyle, you're picking for the Vikings.
Well, I've already clicked the end of the draft, so I can't see who's left.
Well, name some players, and I'll tell you who's left.
Oh, I don't even know what position they need. Right, give me a second.
They need interior defensive line.
They do.
They need corner.
They do need a corner.
They could possibly take a running back.
They could also use a safety,
They could use a safety.
I think
they could.
To end Lockwood's moaning, I think the Minnesota Vikings take Malachi Starks at pick 30.
Pairing with Harrison Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a very good football player.
I 100% agree with that.
And
I think Brian Flores can do a lot with him.
Yes,
100%.
for sure. If there's a defensive coordinator who's gonna get the max out of Malachi Starks, it's Flores. And then we need to get down to the Chiefs. The Chiefs
are a little bit further down. They're at 38.
38, 39, isn't it? Yeah. So are we happy it's going to be an offensive lineman for them?
I believe so, yeah.
So we say.
Are you picking Donovan Jackson?
I think it's Donovan Jackson.
Or Arionte Ursary.
Arionte Ursary is the player I'd have said, but yeah, it's one of those two, isn't it? Seeing as we can't really project the next sort of 8 picks between the two, how about IB Ursary and then one of you be Jackson, and we'll rock, paper, scissors.
I'll be Jackson because
There we
I
go.
picked Jackson here.
So rock, paper, scissors,
Alright.
shoot.
Shoot. Yep.
Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I will go again.
And again.
Go again.
There we go.
Yes, it's Jackson.
It's Jackson.
It's Donovan
There we
Jackson.
go. What a way to end.
But yeah, we didn't leave anyone out then.
We didn't. We
There we
didn't.
go.
So
Very
the
happy with
draft.
that. Yeah, we've done
I
well.
only got one
Very
name
happy with
wrong
that.
there.
Right. Now that we've done that, thank you for watching us. I hope you all had as much fun as we did. You know, kind of when we do this kind of thing, the mock drafts, it's really kind of what we live for. We love it. We send each other mock drafts all the time. And, you know, Kyle may even shout at me for doing mock drafts way too early in the morning. I'll send one into the group chat at like 7:30 if I'm just sat there and I get to work early or something like that. But kind of besides that, obviously, up to next week, we're going to do a little draft competition. So just introducing that a little bit. Kyle, over to you.
Yeah, so next episode, because it's draft week, we're going to record a little bit earlier. We'll hopefully get it out to you guys a little bit earlier. What's going to happen is, in our own time, we're all three going to do a predictive first round mock. Whereas this one, we've been working together, we'll be doing it by ourselves, and it will be predictive of what we think is going to happen. That'll be up pre-draft, and then post-draft, we'll do a review of it, where we go back and we score ourselves based on how well we got. You know, did you get a correct team taking the correct player? Did you correctly get a trade? Have you got them taking the position but not the player? And then whoever has the most points, there will be a prize for them. And then whoever has the least points, there'll be some sort of forfeit for them. So make sure you come and join us for that next week, and it'll be a bit of fun.
Yeah, and please be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, follow us on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, just so you can keep up to date with all the podcasts as they come out. We'll be sharing clips on all the platforms on X and on TikTok. And until next time, guys, it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Kyle.
See you there. It's Amari in Hampton
Can I not interest you in
for
a
the
land
pure
Larissa?
reason. Nope.
It's not the second yet, Kyle.
I don't want a slot receiver. Thank you very much.